How's it going, everybody? Week 17 of NFL is here. One of my favorite weeks in daily fantasy NFL every single year. Ryan King 11, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub, getting involved. New member of the VIP. Please show him some love in the chat if you would. We've got some teams that have absolutely nothing to play for. We have teams that are playing for their playoff lives, trying to get themselves into the tournament, trying to get themselves into the dance. It's going to open up a ton of value. And we're going to have to take some leaps of faith on players that we don't know what their usage is going to be because we don't have a long history of it. And this is very much like preseason, where you do have to take these leaps of faith. And you know that this guy should get this amount of snaps because there aren't going to be anybody else to take him, and should get X amount of targets in a certain range. And the better you are at doing that, the better you're going to do in week 17. So with the teams that have nothing to play for, the Chiefs, the Jags, the Eagles, and the Rams are all locked in. The Chiefs historically have sat their players in these situations before, so somebody like Pat Mahomes or Charkandrick West might see a lot. Mahomes might get his first start. Charkandrick West, if they rest Hunt, might be the guy who gets a ton of looks, both in the passing game and on the ground for the Chiefs. He's been successful in the past for them as well, but they are facing Denver, so it's not like it's up against a really weak opponent. The Jaguars could rest Fournette and get him completely healthy for their playoff run, which means TJ Yeldon could take a big jump forward. The Eagles, probably not going to rest their quarterback because they're already playing with their backup, but we could see some of their key players sit. And if they sit any of their running backs, that would mean that we get a little bit more clarity there. The Rams also, we could see them sit somebody like Gurley, not really needed for week 17. Might give us a little more clarity with their backfield. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look at what we have here on DraftKings. This is my first look. It's Tuesday. Okay, usually we do this on Monday. Monday was Christmas. Hopefully you had a nice time with your family. Hopefully you got the gifts that you want. Hopefully you got the gifts for people that they need. So speaking of gifts for people that need, let's take a quick second to remind you guys that I'm doing this fundraiser for Feeding America, trying to raise as much money as we can. We're 56% of the way to the goal, trying to raise $10,000 by New Year's, by December 31st. I will be donating $5,000 to this of my own. And when we reach the $10,000 or December 31st, whichever comes first, we've seen a really good late charge of donations. I wanted to thank everybody that has given, and those of you who will take the time. You don't have to donate $100. You don't have to donate $1,000. You can afford to give $1. And if you're playing daily fantasy, you can afford to give $1 or $5. Take the time to give the money. 98.6% of the money that Feeding America raises goes directly to their food banks to give money to food for people that just don't have it. So let's try and do what we can as a fantasy football, and more specifically a daily fantasy community, to give something to people that need it maybe more than we do. So looking at quarterbacks, typically we like to spend down, right? This is what we've done pretty much every week. We see these guys up here. Roethlisberger against Cleveland at home. We get Roethlisberger at home. B, we get him against Cleveland, who has been pretty giving against the pass. The Steelers need to win to clinch home field advantage. They have something to play for here, so not against the realm to think that they would get after it and really try and go here. Carolina playing for their playoff lives indoors in Atlanta. Fast track 6,800 for Cam Newton. He disappointed last week. We saw that against Tampa Bay, a team that we thought that he would do well against, but he did poorly against them twice this year, so maybe it's just a thing that he just doesn't match up well against them. Last time that they played, he topped 20 fantasy points. Cam Newton did, and he's been running the ball a lot more. Garoppolo going up against the Rams. The Rams have been a tough defense. Garoppolo really didn't seem to care against the Jaguars. He has been priced up to 6,700. Drew Brees, 6,500. The Saints are playing for a week 1 home game, so I don't think you'll see Brees sit against Tampa Bay. Probably going to have good weather there as well. Though it is on the road, they are going to have to perform and score points. Interesting for him at least. Detroit, absolutely nothing to play for. Kirk Cousins against the Giants. Cousins trying to make all the money, right? He's going to be the highest paid quarterback this offseason. Going to be a lot of teams fighting for him. The Redskins are going to either try and keep him, or maybe the Cardinals try and go after him if they think that Palmer's done. Maybe a couple other teams jump in the mix. Kirk Cousins is going to get paid. I expect him to keep going for it this weekend. Looking down at the cheaper quarterbacks, who can we target? Houston's been a team that we've gone after all year. since Watt and Merciless were out. They've been one of the worst defenses against the pass. Brissett, only 5,500, needs about 15, 16 points. Hasn't really gotten there very consistently, though he did when he played Houston. Passed for 300 yards against them before, so somebody to consider. But the second matchup in a division is usually pretty tough. We can go real cheap here. We did it last week. I mean, we could go with Mahomes, right? If he makes his first start, right? Or is this already? No, this is before. If Mahomes starts this game at 4,700, he becomes interesting. Stanton against Seattle. In Seattle, we went with Stanton last week. We could do it again. You know, the last 3 games that he started, he has paid off this salary. 15, 15, 14. There isn't a ton of upside here, right? I'm not going to get a 25 fantasy point day from Drew Stanton, especially not in Seattle. No, it's not the Seattle defense that we've seen before, but they're still a competent and proud unit. And going up against a guy like Stanton who, you know, does not really have 25-point upside, probably not a route that I want to go there. Hundley going up against Detroit. Interesting, not thrilling. He can either be the best quarterback in the world, as evidenced by here and here, or just kill your lineups as we see here and here. Somebody also that we don't like to think about. Mariota's been terrible and facing off against Jacksonville. Probably not going to go that direction. Might pay up a little bit this week just because we kind of can. But just to stay with the theme, let's go with Brissett. And I don't know that you need to really to pair him with anybody. You could go T.Y. Hilton, but I don't think you need to. Looking at running backs, there's one guy that we got to talk about right off the top. This is a full slate, right? But we already know, and we know early in the week, where'd the Chargers go? Where are my LA Clippers? Where's LAC? Where are they? Forget it. Brandon Oliver might be the only show in town for the Chargers. Might be. You got Eckler, who's out. You got Melvin Gordon, who's dealing with an ankle injury. Brandon Oliver becomes the easiest play on the board at 4K. Last time he was in this situation, saw over 30 touches. Kind of a meaningless game, and against a really bad defense in the Oakland Raiders. So if Gordon is out, Oliver becomes in. Everything with me, you'll notice over the course of this year, has been, and always is, an if-then statement, right? So Oliver being the if-then statement, if Melvin Gordon is out, then Oliver is basically in. Let's plug in a 3K defense just because that's what we always do, right? So I don't even care who it is. I'm not paying attention when I do that, all right? So, like, it's the Bills, right? So don't think, well, Smith said play the Bills and they're the whatever. I just plug in whoever's at 3K for the first look lineup because we'll find out what defense is there later. It's mostly for average remaining salary. So looking at our other running backs, right? We talked about how Charkandrick West may be the guy if Kansas City sits everybody. He's 4,400, gives us an awful lot of value there. We can plug that in. Wide receivers. Antonio Brown is out. We saw Juju Smith-Schuster do very well. We know that Pittsburgh has something to play for. D-Hop is just outstanding. You know, didn't even get a ton of volume this week, you know, against Pittsburgh on Monday night on Christmas. Still ended the day with a touchdown on one of the best catches of the year. Keenan Allen against Oakland. Probably not going to go there. Mike Thomas. Didn't get a lot of volume this week. We knew that he was maybe a little bit dinged. Larry Fitzgerald going to get his volume with Stanton at quarterback. Whether or not it's going to be productive, we don't know. It might be his final game of his career. Marvin Jones Jr. against Green Bay, who's allowed a ton of deep passes. Very interesting in his own right. Yeah. Michael Thomas. Chat says Michael Thomas. Gronky Punch 22 says that he had a hammy issue. Yeah, he did. We knew that going into last week. Historically against Texas, or against Houston, T.Y. Hilton's splits against them are just massive. 5,900 for this game. We can go with the pairing with Brissett. I'm not against that. We can do that early. Martavis Bryant, only 4 targets last week. And Juju Smith-Schuster in week 15, 7 targets. I kind of like this play at 7,300. Again, they have something to play for. Going against the cornerbacks that they're going up against, yes, there are tough cornerbacks on Cleveland. I don't think that is really going to matter all that much to shut them down. I don't see that being a thing that happens. Mike Evans seeing a ton of volume. Don't like going against those New Orleans. Juju is returning kicks too. Well, yeah, you might get that double dip. It's an interesting point. If you get that touchdown return. We saw that from Demare Bird last week where he returned a kick for a touchdown. Somebody jumped into my mentions immediately so that they had the Panthers D and Bird. So they got the 6 points for Bird returning the touchdown, and they got the 6 points for the Panthers D. So they got that double dip. 12 points for that return for them. Hopefully they won some money in that tournament. The Jaguars, they can't really sit anybody at wide receiver. There's nowhere else to go, right? So even if they rest Bortles for Chad Henne, even if they do that, you've got Westbrook, you've got Keelan Cole, essentially the same price. Mickens seeing an uptick in his snap count, but he is kind of the third guy. It's really Keelan Cole seeing a ton of targets, and it's really Dede Westbrook, 20 targets between the two of them last week. Not terrible there. I'm going to take a look at tight end just to see where we're going to see how much we're going to have left. Travis Kelce, not going to play him against Denver. Gronkowski, the Patriots. Yeah, interesting. 7K. He's been on an absolute tear recently. If you want to pay up, typically I don't pay up at tight end in my main lineup. I try not to because I think that we can find value a little bit lower on the board. Seattle playing for their playoff lives. Jimmy Graham, another touchdown. All he got was that, this is the problem, right? All of his targets are coming in the red zone. They're not utilizing him between the 20s. They only had 94 passing yards last week. Definitely a touchdown threat in a game that they have to play. Jack Doyle's targets still massive, 4,700. If we want to come off of T.Y. Hilton, we can get there for 4,700. Against Houston, they just can't stop him. Gronk incentives, I'm going to have to take a look at that as the weeks go on. What is Gates this week? Did he come way up? Antonio Gates, 4,200. Come on. That's ridiculous. That's just... Okay, that's absurd. 2,500? Yeah. 4,200? I'm probably not playing him for 4,200. That's just not going to happen. Vernon Davis against the Giants. Only saw 3 targets again. One of them was for a touchdown. He gets the Giants, who have been one of our teams that we like to target tight ends against pretty much every week. We also have Pittsburgh playing against Cleveland. Their situation last week, a lot of people thought it was going to be Jesse James. Really didn't play. Only 1 target. Vance McDonald, 5 targets. We're going to have to wait for clarity on this one. If Vance McDonald is the clear starter, and we know that he's going to play a ton, then he might be the play here for me at tight end, but I'm not ready to lock that in on a Tuesday on a first look lineup. If Ertz sits, Trey Burton becomes interesting. Jared Cook against the Chargers, probably not going to go that route. Clay against Miami is interesting. 10 targets, 9 targets the last 2 weeks, only 3,700. I think that's going to be the route that I look to go right now for this. I do like, I have paid attention to the flow charts that we have, right? Kansas City against Denver, still we're processing their application for Flowchart Live. Cleveland, Pittsburgh tight ends we just talked about. We need more clarity there for McDonald versus Jesse James. And the Giants with Vernon Davis, if you can stomach the low usage in terms of there. Pigs in a Blanket asks, any thought that the Colts run Gore into the ground and attempt to get 1,000 yards, possibly final season? How many yards does he have? Let's take a look. I mean, that might be something that they do. He'd need 139 yards, though. That would be his tops on the season. I don't know that that's a reality. I kind of don't. He'd have to bust a long one. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be a reality. And also, the thing that we have to pay attention to a lot going into Week 17, and I don't have this list yet because it's just not out, is players who have incentives in their contracts, things that we have to look for that they're looking to do, right? Get off. You know, that can get them a lot of money. Of course, Slack is going bonkers now. So let's take a look. We got DeAndre Hopkins at 8,400, who I'm not opposed to. We have an average salary remaining after plugging in Charles Clay of $7.8K. So we can spend here. First thing I want to spend for is right here. Pittsburgh has to play. I'm not against going against Cleveland with Le'Veon Bell, especially at home. That's going to lower our average remaining salary a little bit for these final 2 wide receivers. If you want to go for D-Hop, fine. Going with Brissett, Hilton, and then bringing it back with D-Hop. Not a bad tournament route to go. Not against that at all. I kind of feel like Landry is somebody who's going to be under-owned, coming off of a game where he kind of busted, and people were really excited about him not only having 1 single-digit week all season. Then he posted another one here in week 16, and people are off of him. I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned. Martavis Bryant, interesting. I don't know how much I want to load up on the Steelers, but I think we have to consider Juju Smith-Schuster as well, which would bring us down into that mid-range of 6,200 if we went for him. That gives us Landry. That gives us Steph Diggs against Chicago. Alshon Jeffrey, I'm not going to go that route. Dez Bryant against Philly has not been very good so far. Jamison Crowder has really turned it on recently. Only 4 targets last game. 2 touchdowns, 1 each of the last 2 weeks. D.D. Westbrook, again, the injuries going up against Jacksonville, something that we really have to look at, and I think that Keelan Cole's the route that I want to go. Giving us $500 more to spend. We can upgrade this defense now. Patriots against the Jets, Seahawks against Arizona, Saints, Chiefs. Denver's been really giving. I'm not against that, though. So Brissett, Oliver, Charkandrick West, both of those plays based on Gordon sitting the game out with an injury, and Charkandrick West, if Hunt sits out, those 2 become the workhorse backs there. T.Y. Hilton to pair with Brissett. Juju Smith-Schuster taking over the wide receiver 1 role in Pittsburgh with Antonio Brown out. Keelan Cole, Charles Clay, and Le'Veon Bell with the Seahawks defense playing at home against the Drew Stanton-led Arizona Cardinals. Thank you guys for tuning in. Before you leave, please click that like button on this video, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys being here all year. Thank you for all the support on the YouTube channel. Thank you for all the support here on Twitch. Appreciate you guys showing up for each one of these shows, and we'll catch up to you next time. Bye.